Hi, so I'm Phil Johnson. I'm a software engineering manager. I've been talking a little bit in recent weeks about a book that I found really useful for me, which is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I've talked about a couple of the habits so far. The Be Proactive is the first one. The second one is Begin with the End in Mind. If you haven't read the book and you want to find out more about those, then watch my previous videos on them. But this habit, so habit 3 that I'm going to chat a little bit about now, and the things that I took away from the book, is called Put First Things First. So this habit is really about organisation and prioritisation, and it's about getting the right things done. Not just work things though, it's about how do we do the things that we want to do in life as well, and how do we work in that work-life balance into our busy routines. So like a lot of things in training or these types of books, we start with a 4-quadrant grid. And if you haven't read the book, this is probably the most famous 4-quadrant grid I've seen. So I've seen this one in a lot of training at work, some blog posts and things like that. So you might have come across it even if you haven't read the book. But this 4-quadrant grid has urgency across the x-axis, and urgency diminishes the further to the right that you go. So in this 4-quadrant grid, the things that are on the left are the most urgent things. On the y-axis, we've got importance, and things that are more important are towards the top of the grid. Things that are less important are towards the bottom. So we end up with these 4 quadrants, and we can put our workload into these things. We can put our things that we want to achieve in life in there as well. And we can work out from where they are in the grid whether they're things that we should stop doing or things we should do more of, things we should spend more time on or spend less time on. So the first quadrant, it's definitely the easiest one to tackle, is quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 is things that aren't urgent and they're not important. So these are really things that we should absolutely just stop doing. Things that fall into this area are things, really trivial things that are really almost generally for me, things that fall into this area are things that I'm putting off other things by doing them. In some cases it might just be that I've got a couple of hours on a Friday afternoon and I've got to do something. I'm putting off starting a really big thing, something that's quite complex, something that I might not be able to get much time done on. So I find something that to kind of fill that time, because I've got to do that in that time. So I've got to be really conscious to stop doing that. Actually, it's better to get that start on that other thing and get going with that. So quadrant 4 things are things that aren't urgent, things that aren't important. Stop doing those entirely. So quadrant 3 is the next one that's not important. So again, these are ones that we should stop doing. But the thing that makes it difficult to stop doing the things in quadrant 3 are there's a sense of urgency attached to them. So this could be someone's rang you up at work or pinged you on Teams or Slack and said, I've got a meeting tomorrow. It would be quite useful for me if I had some information that you provided previously. Can you kind of pull that out again and get it across to me before 3 o'clock tomorrow when I've got this meeting? So there's a sense of urgency there. There's time. It's in the near future. And as humans, we jump on that stuff. This is why when we go to a car showroom, the salesman tells us they can't guarantee us the price they give us beyond that day. We can, they give us the impression that if we want that car, we can literally only buy it that day. We've got to do it quickly. And phishing emails and things like that, they all have this sense of urgency because as humans, we latch onto that urgency and we want to do it. So quadrant 3 is the things that feel urgent, but when we look into them, they're not really that important. So those are things that we should really stop doing as well. We might attach something like improving a working relationship with somebody to things like that, but that increases the importance of doing them, although the task itself might feel it's not important. If there's an importancy in terms of working relationship, then you might want to do them, but generally stop doing things in the quadrant 3 area as well. The next quadrant that is very difficult to reduce, but Covey suggests that we should, is quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 is an area where it's quite stressful to live in, and we spend a lot of our time in there. So Quadrant 1 are things that are very important, and they're also really urgent. So as a software developer, things that fell into that category for me are things like, your priority 1 incidents, bug fixing, where we've got to get something out quite quickly to fix something, security incidents, releases, when you've got a release coming up at the weekend and it's all hands to the pump and everyone is working flat out and things are just coming up all of the time, and there's a real sense of urgency to get these things out. And those things are important, and that's why we spend quite a lot of our time in that quadrant. But what Covey suggests we do is we reduce time that we spend in quadrant 1 on the things that are urgent and gradually spend more and more time in quadrant 2. So quadrant 2 is where we should live. That's a much more comfortable place to be, and we're still doing things that are important. So quadrant 2 things are things that they're not urgent, but they are important. So, we're getting a head start on some of the things that would fall into the first quadrant if we didn't start them sooner and get on with them. So things that might fall into quadrant 2 for me as a software developer would be, dealing with your technical debt, dealing with things like logging, putting logging in so that it avoids you being pulled into that Q1, spending as much time in quadrant 1 on investigating bugs and resolving bugs. It's those things that they're important. If you do them sooner, you stop getting dragged into that really stressful quadrant 1. So what Covey suggests is stop doing Q4 entirely. So stop doing things that aren't urgent and aren't important. Quadrant 3, really reduce what you do in that area, and spend the time that you save on those things in quadrant 2, getting a heads up on things, and that will gradually over time reduce the time that you spend in quadrant 1. There's always going to be the odd urgent and important thing drops into quadrant 1 that you've got to pick up, but the more time that we can live in quadrant 2, the easier life gets. So you can drop your current workload kind of onto this grid, work out where things sit and what things you might have been spending a lot of time on that you should really stop or avoid more of in the future, which things you should start doing more of. But as well, like I said earlier, for me, whenever I get sort of a call or get asked to do something, I just mentally visualize kind of where does it sit in this grid, and is it something that should really distract me from what I'm working on, what I'm pushing on to do, or should I just let somebody know that actually there's other stuff on my plate, and whilst I might want to do that for them, I really just don't have time at the minute given other priorities that are on. So that's habit 3, and put first things first, and that's the last of what Covey calls the personal victories. That gets you to sort of independence. These first 3 habits have been ones that really we do ourselves. Other people might notice a change in how effective we are if we're doing them, but they're all things that are within our gift to entirely do to ourselves. So the next 3 habits are what Covey calls public victories, and those are things that really require collaboration and working with others to do. So the next one that I'll look at in a future video is habit 4, which is win-win, which is where you look for situations where everybody gets something out of it, basically. There's quite a bit more to it than that. We'll cover that in the next video. But hope you found this one useful. Hopefully, if you are struggling with any prioritization and organization, using habit 3, putting first things first, and the 4-quadrant grid of importancy and urgency will help you with that. So if you found this interesting, check out some of my other videos, subscribe to see future videos, and I'll see you on another video.